24-year-old Ariel Green is burning the midnight oil as an intern at prestigious Lumiere Beauty in New York City, determined to prove herself in the competitive beauty industry. When the company's new French CEO, Mathis Renard, mistakes her for event staff and flirts with her in French, assuming she won't understand, he gets the shock of his life when she responds fluently. What begins as a moment of linguistic surprise evolves into a complex dance of attraction, ambition, and workplace politics that threatens everything Ariel has worked for. As their connection deepens, both must decide what they're willing to sacrifice for love and what they're willing to fight for to build a future on their own terms. Before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The fluorescent lights hummed above Ariel Green's head as she organized the glossy mood boards spread across the long boardroom table. At 24, she was the youngest intern at Lumiere Beauty and often the last to leave the office. Tonight was no exception. Ariel glanced at her watch, 9:30 p.m. Her grandmother would have scolded her for working so late, but Ariel knew that extra hours were the price of ambition in New York City. Besides, the quiet after everyone left was sometimes the only peace she found in this place. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate. "Still at work? Girl, you need a life." Ariel smiled but didn't respond. Her roommate didn't understand what this internship meant to her. Growing up in a tiny Chicago apartment with her grandmother, a retired French teacher, Ariel had dreamed of more than what their modest life could offer. Now she was here, in the headquarters of one of the world's most prestigious beauty brands, determined to make her mark. "Just a few more files," she muttered to herself, sorting through the fashion clippings for tomorrow's marketing presentation. The sound of the boardroom door opening made her jump. She hadn't expected anyone else to be here this late. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you," a deep voice said with a heavy French accent. Ariel looked up and instantly recognized Mathis Renard, the company's new CEO. Everyone in the office had been talking about him since his arrival from Paris last month. Tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they saw, he had a reputation for both charm and ruthlessness. "It's no problem, Mr. Renard," Ariel said quickly, straightening her posture. "I'm just finishing up with these mood boards for tomorrow's meeting." Mathis walked into the room, his tailored suit still perfect despite the late hour. He looked at Ariel with curiosity, clearly trying to place her. "You're from the event staff?" he asked, his gaze sweeping over her simple black dress and blazer. Ariel felt a familiar twinge of frustration. It wasn't the first time someone had assumed she wasn't part of the professional team. Before she could correct him, Mathis smiled and said in French, "Une fleur aussi belle ne devrait jamais être seule dans une pièce vide." He chuckled, clearly expecting confusion from what he assumed was a member of the cleaning staff. Instead, Ariel didn't even look up as she calmly replied in perfect French, "Et un homme aussi sûr de lui devrait savoir quand il parle à une femme qui comprend chaque mot." Mathis froze. The smile faded from his lips as surprise registered on his face. "How you speak French?" he said, switching back to English. "Fluently," Ariel replied, finally meeting his gaze. "I'm Ariel Green. I'm an intern in the marketing department, not event staff." For a moment, Mathis looked genuinely embarrassed, an expression his employees would have been shocked to see on his usually confident face. Then, slowly, a real smile spread across his features. Not the practiced charm he usually displayed, but something more authentic. "My apologies, Ms. Green. That was presumptuous of me." He extended his hand. "Let me introduce myself properly, Mathis Renard." "I know who you are, Mr. Renard," Ariel said, accepting his handshake. His grip was firm, his hand warm. "Where did you learn to speak French so beautifully?" he asked, genuine interest replacing his earlier arrogance. "My grandmother raised me. She was a French teacher for 40 years. She taught you well. Your accent is impeccable." "Thank you," Ariel said, beginning to gather her things. "If you'll excuse me, I should be going." "Of course," Mathis said, stepping aside. But as she reached the door, he added, "Ms. Green." She turned. "I look forward to seeing you at tomorrow's presentation." Ariel nodded, uncertain how to respond. She hadn't expected him to know about the meeting, let alone attend it. "Good night, Mr. Renard." "Bonne nuit, Ariel," he replied softly. The next morning, Ariel arrived early to find her supervisor, Vanessa, waiting for her with an odd expression. "Something wrong?" Ariel asked, hanging up her coat. "HR called. Your application for the junior marketing position has been fast-tracked." Ariel blinked in surprise. "But I just submitted it yesterday. I thought the review process took weeks." Vanessa crossed her arms. "It usually does. Care to explain how yours is suddenly a priority?" "I have no idea," Ariel said honestly. though a suspicion was forming in her mind. "Well, whatever you did, it worked. You're also invited to join the executive meeting this afternoon." "The executive meeting? But that's only for senior staff." "Not today, apparently." Vanessa's tone made it clear she wasn't pleased. "Just be ready at 2 o'clock. And Ariel, a lot of people have been waiting years for opportunities like this." The implication was clear and it stung. Ariel had worked hard for her accomplishments. She didn't want special treatment, especially not the kind that would make her colleagues question her abilities. Throughout the morning she felt eyes on her. Whispers followed her to the break room, where she overheard two designers talking. "Did you hear about the intern who caught Renard's eye?" "Already? He's been here, what, a month?" Apparently she was working late, alone with him in the boardroom. Ariel's cheeks burned as she turned and walked out, leaving her coffee unmade. This was exactly what she'd feared, her hard work overshadowed by gossip. At 1:30 she was reviewing her notes for the presentation when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Looking forward to your insights this afternoon." The mood boards were excellent. "Mr." Ariel stared at the message. How had he gotten her number, and how did he know she was responsible for the mood boards? Her name wasn't even on the project. She decided not to respond, slipping the phone into her drawer. The executive boardroom was intimidating, all glass and chrome with views of Manhattan stretching out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ariel took a seat near the back, trying to be inconspicuous among the senior staff who clearly wondered why she was there. Mattis entered last, commanding the room's attention with his presence alone. His eyes found Ariel immediately, and he gave her a slight nod before beginning the meeting. "Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge some fresh perspectives joining us today," he said, gesturing toward Ariel. "Ms. Green has shown exceptional creativity with the new campaign concepts." All eyes turned to her. Ariel forced herself to sit up straighter despite wanting to disappear. The meeting proceeded, and to Ariel's surprise, Mattis repeatedly directed questions to her. Not easy ones either, challenging questions about market demographics and brand positioning that she had to think carefully to answer. But she knew her research. She'd been studying the company's reports for months, preparing for a chance that she never expected would come so soon. With each answer, the skeptical looks from the executives slowly transformed into grudging respect. After the meeting, Matisse approached her as others filed out of the room. "You impressed them," he said. "Not easy to do." "Thank you, Mr. Renard. But I have to ask, did you have something to do with my application being fast-tracked?" He didn't deny it. "I recognized talent, something too rare in this industry." "I appreciate the opportunity," Ariel said carefully, "but I'd prefer to advance on my own merits." Matisse studied her for a moment. "Last night, you weren't intimidated by me. Today, you held your own against executives with decades more experience. Those are your merits, Ms. Green," he paused. "Your French is a surprise bonus." Before she could respond, his assistant appeared at the door. "Your car is waiting, Mr. Renard." "Thank you, Claire." To Ariel, he added, "Keep up the good work, Ms. Green. I expect great things." As he walked away, Ariel wasn't sure whether to feel proud or worried. His interest could open doors for her career, but at what cost? Over the next few weeks, Ariel noticed Matisse appearing wherever she happened to be. In the break room when she went for coffee, in the hallway near her desk, at the same charity event where she was volunteering. It wasn't obvious to others and never inappropriate, just persistent, intentional encounters that couldn't be coincidence. During a company dinner, he arranged for her to be seated at his table, introducing her to industry leaders as the future of Lumière. When the conversation switched to French as several Parisian executives discussed a new product line, Ariel followed easily, occasionally adding insights that made the visitors nod with appreciation. Later, as waiters cleared dessert plates, Matisse leaned closer. "You understand me before I finish my thoughts," he said quietly in French, "and I've never had that, not even in Paris." The sincerity in his voice made her look up, meeting his eyes. For a moment, she saw past the powerful CEO to something more vulnerable. "It's just language," she replied, also in French. "No," he said, "it's more than that." Ariel looked away, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. Let me have my driver take you home." "That's not necessary. It's late and it's raining." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." In the back of the sleek black car, Matisse kept a respectful distance, but Ariel could feel the weight of unspoken words between them. "My grandmother would have liked you," she said suddenly, surprising herself. "Why is that?" "She believed in being direct. No games, no pretending." "And you think I don't play games?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. I think you've played them so long you've forgotten how to stop. His eyebrows rose at her boldness. Most people wouldn't speak to their boss that way. Is that what you are, my boss? Technically, yes. Then technically this conversation is inappropriate. A smile tugged at his lips. You're not afraid to challenge me. Should I be? The car pulled up in front of her apartment building. My grandmother also taught me something else, Ariel said, gathering her purse. Don't mix ambition with affection, especially not with men like you. Men like me. Powerful men who are used to getting what they want. Matisse was quiet for a moment. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. Ariel opened the car door. Good night, Mr. Renard. Ariel, he called as she stepped out. What if what I want is just to know you better? She looked back at him, rain dampening her hair. That's the problem with men like you. It's never just anything. She closed the door and walked away, feeling his eyes on her until she disappeared into her building. In her small apartment, Ariel kicked off her shoes and sank onto her sofa, confused by her own feelings. She'd worked so hard to get where she was. The last thing she needed was to be the subject of office gossip, or worse, to have her accomplishments attributed to a powerful man's interest. But when Matisse spoke to her in French, softly, respectfully, it felt less like flirting and more like being seen, really seen in a way no one had since her grandmother passed away. She pulled out her phone and saw a new text. Thank you for your honesty tonight. It's refreshing to be challenged. Sleep well, Mr. Ariel put the phone down without responding, but couldn't help the small smile that formed on her lips. Outside her window, rain continued to fall on the New York streets, washing everything clean. Ariel's promotion from intern to junior marketing associate was announced the following week. While most colleagues congratulated her, she couldn't ignore the whispers that followed her through the hallways. It's because she speaks French, one account manager said to another as Ariel passed by the break room. Among other things, I'm sure, came the reply, followed by knowing laughter. Ariel held her head high, focusing on proving herself through her work. She arrived earlier than everyone else and stayed later than most. Her ideas for the new spring campaign were innovative yet practical, earning grudging respect from even her harshest critics. But avoiding Matisse proved impossible. As CEO, he was suddenly everywhere, requesting her presence in meetings, asking for her opinion on new products, sending her emails with articles about French culture that he thought might interest her. One evening, as Ariel was finishing a presentation draft, Claire, Matisse's assistant, appeared at her desk. Mr. Renard would like to see you in his office, she said, her expression revealing nothing. Ariel's stomach tightened. Did he say what it's about? No, but he asked that you bring your ideas for the Paris launch. The Paris launch, Lumiere's biggest event of the year, scheduled for next month. Ariel had been working on concepts for it, but hadn't shared them with anyone yet. How did he know I was developing ideas for Paris, she asked. Claire just shrugged. Mr. Renard notices everything. Gathering her tablet and notes, Ariel made her way to the executive floor. Matisse's office was at the end of the hallway, a corner space with glass walls that offered panoramic views of Manhattan. He was on the phone when she arrived, but waved her in with a smile. Je vous remercie. À bientôt, he said, ending his call. Ariel, thank you for coming. You wanted to see me about the Paris launch. Yes, please, sit. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. I've been reviewing the initial concepts from the marketing team, and they lack something. Something, Ariel repeated cautiously. Authenticity. Matisse leaned forward. They understand luxury, but not French luxury. There's a difference. Ariel nodded. She'd thought the same thing when she saw the preliminary materials, but hadn't felt it was her place to say so. I understand you've been working on some alternative approaches, he continued. I have, but they're just drafts. I was going to refine them before sharing. I'd like to see them now, if you don't mind. Ariel hesitated, then opened her tablet and passed it to him. They're not perfect yet. Matisse scrolled through her presentation, his expression unreadable. After several minutes of silence that felt like hours to Ariel, he looked up. These are excellent, he said simply. This is exactly what I've been trying to explain to the team. Relief washed over her. Thank you. I want you to present these at tomorrow's strategy meeting. Ariel's eyes widened. But Mr. Collins is leading the Paris campaign. He's been with the company for 15 years, and he's become comfortable, too comfortable. Matisse handed back her tablet. It's time for fresh ideas, Ariel. The senior team won't like it. They already think... She stopped herself. They already think what? Matisse prompted. Ariel took a deep breath. They already think I'm getting special treatment because I recognize your talent." His voice remained calm, but she could see tension in his jaw. "Because they think there's something between us," she clarified. "Personally, I mean." Mattis was quiet for a moment. "And is there?" The direct question caught her off guard. I don't think that's an appropriate conversation, Mr. Renard." "Mattis," he corrected gently. "And you're right. I apologize." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "My personal interest in you doesn't change the fact that your work is superior. I wouldn't ask you to present if it weren't." "Your personal interest?" Ariel repeated, her heart beating faster. He turned to face her. "I've been direct about many things in my life, Ariel. I don't see why this should be different. Yes, I find you intriguing, professionally and personally, but I would never use my position to pressure you. Your career here stands on its own merits." Ariel didn't know how to respond. Part of her was flattered. Another part was terrified of the complications this created. "I should go," she said, gathering her things. "Will you present tomorrow?" Mattis asked. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, but because I believe in my work, not because you asked me to." A smile touched his lips. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The presentation was a disaster, not because of Ariel's ideas. Those were solid, but David Collins, the marketing director who'd been leading the Paris campaign, made his displeasure clear from the moment she stood up. "While I appreciate Ms. Green's enthusiasm," he said when she finished, "these concepts lack the sophistication our high-end clientele expects. They're amateurish at best." Ariel felt her cheeks burn as several heads nodded in agreement. "I disagree," Mattis said calmly from the head of the table. "I find them refreshing and authentic." Collins's smile was tight. "With all due respect, Mr. Renard, I've been building this brand for 15 years. I know our customers." "And perhaps that's the problem," Mattis replied. "You know our existing customers. Ms. Green's approach will help us reach new ones." The tension in the room was palpable. Ariel wished she could disappear. "Let's put it to a vote," Collins suggested, clearly confident in his support. "That won't be necessary," Mattis said, his tone final. "As CEO, I've decided. We're going with Ms. Green's direction for the Paris launch." A stunned silence fell over the room. Collins's face turned red, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Now, let's discuss implementation," Mattis continued, as if nothing unusual had happened. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur for Ariel. As soon as it ended, she hurried back to her desk, ignoring the stares that followed her. Later that afternoon, she was called into Vanessa's office. "What was that?" her supervisor demanded as soon as the door closed. "I was asked to present my ideas," Ariel said defensively. "By Renard, I assume." Vanessa sighed. "Ariel, do you have any idea what position this puts you in? What position it puts me in, as your supervisor?" "I did the work he asked for. The ideas are good." "That's not the point. Collins has been here since before you were in high school. He has connections throughout the industry. And now he thinks you went behind his back to the CEO. But I didn't. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. It matters what people think." Vanessa lowered her voice. "People are talking, Ariel, about you and Renard." "There's nothing to talk about," Ariel insisted, though her face felt hot. "Then you need to make that clear. Distance yourself from him, professionally and personally, before your reputation is damaged beyond repair." The warning hit home. Ariel had worked too hard to be dismissed as someone who slept her way to the top, especially when she hadn't. That evening, she waited until most people had left before making her way to Mattis's office. His assistant was gone, but light still shone from behind his door. She knocked softly. "Enter," came his voice. He looked up from his computer, a smile spreading across his face when he saw her. "Ariel, I was just thinking about you." "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. His smile faded at her serious tone. "What's wrong?" "You can't override senior staff like that. Not for me. I made a business decision based on the superior concept. It humiliated Collins in front of everyone, and it made me look like—" She struggled to find the right words. "Like what?" Mattis prompted. "Like I'm sleeping with the boss to get ahead." The words came out louder than she intended. Mattis was silent for a— "Is that what people are saying?" "What did you think they'd say? You've shown me special attention from day one." He stood up, walking around his desk to stand closer to her. "Because you're special, Ariel. Your talent, your mind, your spirit, they're exceptional." "Stop," she said, holding up a hand. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. These compliments, the private meetings, the texts. It's inappropriate." "Is it inappropriate because I'm your boss, or because you feel something too and it frightens you? His voice was gentle, not accusing. The question hit too close to home. Of course she felt something. How could she not? He was brilliant, charismatic, and when he looked at her like he was looking at her now, like she was the only person in the world, it took all her willpower not to step closer. Both, she admitted quietly. I've worked so hard to get here, Mattis. I can't throw it away for feelings, he finished for her. For something that can't go anywhere. She shook her head. I need this job. I need a career that I build on my own terms. I can't be the woman who fell for the CEO. Mattis studied her face for a long moment. What if I could prove to you that your success here has nothing to do with my feelings for you? How would you do that? Give me time, he said, and in the meantime, I'll keep my distance, professionally and personally. The thought of his distance shouldn't have hurt, but it did. That would be best, she said anyway. He nodded, taking a step back. Is there anything else, Ms. Green? The formal address stung, even though it was what she'd asked for. No, Mr. Renard. That's all. As she turned to leave, he added, Ariel? She looked back. Your ideas really were the best. That's the only reason I chose them. She nodded once and left, feeling his eyes on her, until the elevator doors closed. True to his word, Mattis kept his distance over the next 2 weeks. He addressed Ariel formally in meetings, stopped sending her texts, and made no special effort to seek her out. She should have been relieved. Instead, she found herself missing their conversations, especially the ones in French that made her feel connected to the grandmother she'd lost 2 years ago. The Paris launch preparations kept her busy, but her mind often wandered to Mattis. What had he meant about proving her success wasn't tied to his feelings, and more importantly, why did she care so much about a man she barely knew? One evening, as she was leaving the office, David Collins stepped into the elevator with her. Green, he acknowledged coldly. Mr. Collins, she replied, eyes fixed on the descending floor numbers. I noticed Renard's backed off, he said after a moment. Trouble in paradise. Ariel bit her tongue, refusing to engage. You know, it's impressive, Collins continued. Most office flings with the boss last longer than a few weeks, but I guess once he got you the Paris campaign. There was never anything between Mr. Renard and me, Ariel said firmly. And I earned that campaign on merit, Collins laughed. Sure you did. Just like you earned that promotion after one night alone with him in the boardroom. The elevator reached the lobby, and Ariel stepped out, turning to face him. You know what's sad, Mr. Collins? You've been here 15 years, and your best explanation for being outperformed is to assume I'm sleeping with someone. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's that you stopped trying years ago. She walked away before he could respond, her hands shaking with anger. Outside, rain poured down, soaking her in seconds as she searched for a taxi. A black car pulled up beside her, and the window rolled down to reveal Mattis in the back seat. Get in, he said. You're getting drenched. I'm fine, she insisted, even as water dripped from her hair. Ariel, please, just a ride, nothing more. After a moment's hesitation, she opened the door and slid into the warm, dry car. Thank you, she said stiffly, aware of how unprofessional she must look, soaking wet in the back of his car. You're welcome. He handed her a handkerchief. I overheard your conversation with Collins in the lobby. Ariel groaned. Perfect. Now you'll probably fire me for insubordination. Actually, I was impressed. You stood up for yourself and for your work. She dabbed at her face with the handkerchief. He's not the only one who thinks that way. I know. Mattis was quiet for a moment. That's why I've been working on something. Working on what? You asked how I could prove your success wasn't tied to my feelings. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. This is how. Ariel opened it to find a letter offering her a position as marketing manager for the Paris office of Lumière. What is this? She asked, confused. A promotion, a significant one, but not from me. He pointed to the signature at the bottom. This came directly from the board of directors in Paris, based solely on your work for the upcoming launch, which they reviewed independently. But how? I sent your portfolio to them anonymously. They had no idea you were connected to me in any way. This offer is based entirely on your talent, Ariel. She stared at the letter, trying to process what this meant. You're sending me to Paris? I'm giving you an opportunity you've earned. Whether you take it is up to you. His voice softened. Though selfishly, I hope you don't. Ariel looked up, meeting his eyes. Why are you doing this? Because I want you to know that your success here has nothing to do with whatever is between us. You would rise on your own, with or without me. The gesture touched her deeply. No one had ever believed in her this way. not since her grandmother. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything now. Think about it. He hesitated, then asked, May I ask you something personal? She nodded. You mentioned your grandmother raised you. What about your parents? The question caught her off guard. Few people at work asked about her personal life. My mother died when I was 7, she said quietly. Cancer. My father wasn't in the picture. My grandmother was all I had. I'm sorry, Matisse said, and she could tell he meant it. She was amazing. Taught French at the same high school for 40 years. Our apartment was small, but it was filled with books and music. Ariel smiled at the memory. She used to play Edith Piaf records while grading papers. And now you speak her language perfectly. It was our special connection. After she died 2 years ago, speaking French is how I keep her with me. Matisse was quiet, studying her face in the dim light of the car. You loved her very much. She was everything to me. Ariel looked down at the letter in her hands. She always told me I'd see Paris someday. And now you can. The car pulled up in front of her apartment building, but Matisse made no move to let her out. You never talk about your family, Ariel said, suddenly curious. Do they still live in France? A shadow crossed his face. My father does. We're not close. And your mother? She died when I was 12. His voice was even, but she could sense the old pain beneath it. My father remarried quickly. His new wife had little interest in another woman's child. That must have been hard. It taught me self-reliance and the value of emotional distance. He said it matter-of-factly, but Ariel could see what it had cost him. Is that why you speak French like you do? She asked softly. What do you mean? You speak French like it's a performance, she said. Polished, perfect, but distant. I speak it like it's the last memory I have of someone I loved. Matisse looked stunned, as if she'd seen something in him no one else had noticed. I've never thought of it that way. The air between them seemed to change, growing warmer, more intimate. I should go, Ariel said, though she made no move to leave. Of course. Matisse reached across her to open her door, bringing him close enough that she could smell his cologne. Think about Paris, Ariel. It's an opportunity you deserve. As she stepped out of the car, he added, But know that if you stay, I'll respect whatever boundaries you set. Your career here won't suffer either way. Ariel nodded, unable to find the right words. As the car pulled away, she clutched the folder to her chest, torn between opportunity and the unexpected feelings growing in her heart. Inside her apartment, she read the offer letter again, imagining herself in Paris, the city her grandmother had always described with such love. It was everything she'd worked for, so why did the thought of leaving New York, of leaving Matisse, feel like losing something precious before it had even begun? Ariel spent the weekend weighing her options. The Paris offer was everything she had dreamed of, a chance to honor her grandmother's memory by living in the city she had loved so much. The salary was generous, the position prestigious. She would be crazy to turn it down. Yet, every time she imagined herself in Paris, Matisse's face appeared in her mind. Their connection felt unfinished, like a book she'd put down just as the story was getting good. Monday morning arrived with grey skies and drizzling rain. Ariel headed to the office early, her decision still unmade. When she stepped off the elevator, she was surprised to find Vanessa waiting for her. We need to talk, her supervisor said, motioning toward her office. Inside, Vanessa closed the door and turned to face Ariel. Is it true? You've been offered the Paris position? How did you know about that? News travels fast here. Vanessa sat down behind her desk. So it's true. Yes, I'm still considering it. Consider it carefully. Vanessa leaned forward. This could be your chance to start fresh without the rumors. What rumors now? Ariel asked wearily. That Renard is restructuring the entire marketing department to give you more power. That he's planning to fire Collins and anyone else who questioned your promotion. That's ridiculous. He wouldn't do that. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Wouldn't he? He's not exactly known for sentimentality. Before coming here, he cut 30% of the Paris staff without blinking. This is different, Ariel insisted, though doubt crept into her mind. She didn't really know what Matisse was capable of. Is it? Vanessa studied her. Do you have feelings for him? The direct question made Ariel pause. I don't know. Maybe, but nothing has happened between us. It doesn't matter. People believe it has. Your work will always be questioned here now. Vanessa's expression softened slightly. Paris is a clean slate, Ariel, take it. Throughout the morning, Ariel tried to focus on her tasks, but her mind kept returning to Vanessa's words. Was she foolish to stay? Would her work always be undermined by gossip? Around noon, her phone buzzed with a text from Matisse. Lunch, we should talk. She hesitated, then replied, Okay. Where? Le Petit Bistrot, 1 p.m. Le Petit Bistrot was a small French restaurant several blocks from the office, far enough that they wouldn't run into colleagues. Ariel arrived 5 minutes late, finding Matisse already seated at a corner table. Thank you for coming, he said as she sat down. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, she admitted. People are talking again. Let them talk. He looked tired, she noticed. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. They're saying you're restructuring the department because of me, that you're going to fire people who don't support me. Matisse's expression darkened. That's not true. But you are restructuring the department, he sighed. Yes, but it was planned before I even met you. The Paris office requested changes months ago. Why didn't you tell me? Because it's confidential, until the board approves the final plan. He studied her face. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't much. She fidgeted with her napkin. I've been thinking about the Paris offer. And I don't know what to do. She met his eyes. What do you want me to do, Matisse? I want you to do what's best for you. That's not an answer. A slight smile touched his lips. No, it's not. He was quiet for a moment. If I were being completely selfish, I'd ask you to stay. But I won't do that. Why not? Because your career matters to me. Your happiness matters to me. He leaned forward. Paris could give you both. And what about your happiness? She asked softly. Something vulnerable flashed in his eyes. I've learned to live without expecting much of that. The waiter arrived to take their orders, interrupting the moment. They both ordered in French, earning an approving smile from the older waiter. You two make a beautiful couple, he said in French before departing. Ariel felt her cheeks warm. He thinks we're together. Would that be so terrible? Matisse asked, his voice light but his eyes serious. It would be complicated. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. If I stayed, and if something did happen between us, how would it work? You're still the CEO. There are ways to manage it. I could recuse myself from decisions about your position. Your performance reviews could be handled by the board. You've thought about this, she realized. I've thought about little else, he admitted. Their food arrived and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Tell me something about yourself that no one at the office knows, Ariel said suddenly. Matisse looked surprised by the request, then thoughtful. I play the piano, classical mostly. My mother taught me. Really? I wouldn't have guessed that. It's the only time I feel connected to her still. He smiled sadly. I understand what you mean now about language being a connection to someone you've lost. Will you play for me someday? The words slipped out before she could stop them. I'd like that. His expression grew serious. What about you? Tell me something no one at work knows. Ariel considered. I still sleep with a stuffed bear my grandmother gave me when I was 6. His name is Monsieur Fuzz, and he's missing one eye. Matisse laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. That's charming. It's childish, she said, but she was smiling too. It's human. He reached across the table and briefly touched her hand. That's what I like most about you, Ariel. You've never tried to be anything but yourself. The simple touch sent warmth through her fingers, even when I'm arguing with you. Especially then. His smile faded. I've been surrounded by people who tell me what they think I want to hear for so long. Your honesty is refreshing. Their conversation flowed easily after that, moving from childhood memories to favorite books, to places they'd traveled. For the first time, Ariel felt like she was seeing the real Matisse, not the powerful CEO, but the man beneath the polished exterior. After lunch, they walked back toward the office, lingering on the sidewalk half a block away. I should go in first, Ariel said. People will talk if they see us together. Let me ask you something, Matisse said, ignoring her concern. If I weren't your boss, if we'd met somewhere else, at a party or a cafe, would you have given me a chance? Ariel looked up at him, at the vulnerability in his usually confident face. Yes, she said honestly. I would have. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then perhaps that's our answer. What do you mean? Take the Paris job, he said. Establish yourself there, away from my influence. And then, when the time is right, what? I could step down as CEO here. Take a position on the board instead. We could start over without the complications. Ariel stared at him in shock. You would give up your position? For me? For us? He corrected gently. If you think there could be an us. Before she could respond, her phone rang. It was Vanessa. I have to take this, she said apologetically. Of course. I'll see you inside. He touched her arm briefly, then walked away. Ariel, where are you? Vanessa's voice was tense. Collins is calling an emergency department meeting. He's on the warpath. About what? You, the Paris launch, everything. Get here now. Ariel hurried back to the office, her mind spinning from both Mattis's suggestion and Vanessa's warning. When she reached the conference room, it was already full. Collins stood at the head of the table, his face flushed with anger. "Ah, Ms. Green, so glad you could join us," he said, as she slipped into a seat. "I was just explaining to the team about some interesting information I've received." Ariel's stomach knotted. "What information?" Collins smiled coldly. "About your rapid rise in the company, and about certain late-night meetings with our CEO." Whispers rippled through the room. Ariel felt her face burning. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "No? Let me refresh your memory." Collins tapped his tablet, and a security camera image appeared on the large screen. It showed Ariel entering Mattis's office after hours, closing the door behind her. "This is from 2 weeks ago," Collins continued. "One of many such meetings, I'm told. And then, miraculously, your ideas for the Paris launch are chosen over mine." "That's not what happened," Ariel protested, looking around at her colleagues' faces, some confused, others judgmental, a few sympathetic. "No? Then perhaps you'd care to explain why our CEO is suddenly restructuring the department, why loyal employees who've been here for years are being pushed aside for you." "The restructuring has nothing to do with me," Ariel said, repeating what Mattis had told her. Collins laughed. "Right. Just like your promotion had nothing to do with your private French lessons with Renard." "That's enough, David." Everyone turned to see Mattis standing in the doorway, his expression dangerously calm. "Mr. Renard," Collins said, clearly surprised, "I was just discussing some concerns about Ms. Green's qualifications." "Yes, I heard." Mattis walked into the room, his gaze sweeping over the assembled staff. "Let me make something perfectly clear. Ms. Green's work was selected for the Paris launch because it was superior. Period." "With all due respect, sir," Collins persisted, "there are questions about the nature of your relationship with—" "My relationship with every employee in this company is professional," Mattis cut him off, his voice sharp. "But since you've decided to make accusations in a public forum, let's address them directly." He turned to face the entire room. "Yes, Ms. Green and I have had meetings after hours. So have I with many of you. Yes, she speaks French, which I find helpful given that we are a French company. And yes, I recognize her talent, something I expect all managers to do with promising team members." Collins opened his mouth to speak, but Mattis continued. "What I will not tolerate is baseless gossip that undermines a colleague's hard work. Ms. Green has earned every opportunity she's been given here. Anyone who suggests otherwise is not only insulting her integrity, but mine as well." The room was completely silent. Ariel couldn't believe what she was hearing. Mattis was defending her publicly, unequivocally. "Now," Mattis said, his voice quieter but no less firm, "if anyone has legitimate concerns about the Paris campaign or the department restructuring, my door is open. But this meeting is over." Collins stood frozen, clearly shocked by the public rebuke. The other staff members began filing out, avoiding eye contact with both Collins and Ariel. When only Ariel, Mattis and Collins remained, Mattis spoke again. "David, I'd like to see you in my office." Now, as Collins gathered his things, Mattis turned to Ariel. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though she felt shaky. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't need to thank me for telling the truth," he said simply, then followed Collins out of the room. Ariel sat alone for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Mattis had publicly supported her, risking his own reputation in the process. He'd made it clear that her work stood on its own merits, and he'd offered to give up his position as CEO for a chance at a relationship with her. No one had ever believed in her that way before. For the rest of the day, the office was unnaturally quiet. Collins didn't return from Mattis's office, and rumors spread that he'd been suspended or even fired. Ariel tried to focus on her work, but found it impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mattis standing in that doorway, defending her without hesitation. That evening, as she was packing up to leave, Vanessa appeared at her desk. "Are you okay?" her supervisor asked. "That was intense." "I'm fine," Ariel said. "Just tired." "For what it's worth, I don't think you did anything wrong." Vanessa's voice was surprisingly gentle. "Collins has always been threatened by new talent." "Thanks." Ariel managed a small smile. "Any word on what happened to him?" 2-week suspension from what I hear, and he's been removed from the Paris launch team." Ariel winced. "That won't help the rumors." "Maybe not, but after what Renard said today, People might think twice before spreading them. Vanessa hesitated. Have you decided about Paris? Not yet, but I'm close. Well, whatever you decide, you've earned it. Vanessa squeezed her shoulder briefly. See you tomorrow. Alone again, Ariel checked her phone. No messages from Mattis. Part of her was disappointed, but another part was relieved. She needed space to think clearly, without his presence clouding her judgment. As she rode the subway home, she thought about what he had said at lunch. Could they really start over? Would he actually step down as CEO for her? And even if he did, would people ever see her success as her own? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is it true? Did Renard really defend you in front of everyone? Details, please. It was from Ariel's roommate's friend who worked in Lumiere's HR department. News really did travel fast. Ariel didn't respond, but the text reminded her that no matter what happened between her and Mattis, it would never be just about the two of them. There would always be spectators, assumptions, whispers, unless she took the Paris job. By the time she reached her apartment, she had made her decision. The next morning, Ariel arrived at the office with a sealed envelope. She placed it on Claire's desk, asking her to give it to Mr. Renard when he arrived. Is everything all right, Miss? Green? Claire asked, eyeing the envelope. Yes, Ariel said, surprised to find she meant it. Everything is fine. She returned to her desk and immersed herself in work, responding to emails and finalizing details for the Paris launch. An hour passed, then two. No word from Matisse. Just before lunch, her phone buzzed with a text. My office, please. Mr. Ariel took a deep breath, gathered her tablet, and headed to the executive floor. Claire nodded her through without a word. Matisse stood by the window, the envelope in his hand. He turned when she entered, his expression unreadable. You're accepting the Paris position, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes? He nodded slowly. When? The board wants me there for the launch next month. I'd leave in 3 weeks. I see. He placed the envelope on his desk. You've made the right decision. Have I? She searched his face for some sign of what he was feeling. For your career, absolutely. He took a step toward her. For us, that remains to be seen. I keep thinking about what you said about starting over. I meant it. His voice was low, intense. Every word. But I can't ask you to give up your position, she said. That's too much. You didn't ask. I offered. A smile touched his lips. Besides, I've been CEO of one company or another for 10 years. Perhaps it's time for a change. What would you do instead? The board has been asking me to take on a strategic advisory role for years. Less day-to-day management, more long-term planning. He shrugged. It would mean more flexibility, including time for trips to Paris. Hope flickered in Ariel's chest. You'd visit? If you wanted me to. He moved closer. This doesn't have to be the end, Ariel. It could be a beginning. She looked up at him at the vulnerability in his usually guarded eyes. I'd like that. So would I. He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. May I take you to dinner tonight? To celebrate your new position? Yes, she said without hesitation. I'd like that too. His smile warmed his entire face. Excellent. I know a place where we can speak French all evening. My grandmother would approve, she said, smiling back. I wish I could have met her. She would have seen right through your CEO act, Ariel teased gently, just as you did. His hand closed around hers, warm and solid, just as you always do. For a moment they stood there, connected by touch and gaze and possibility. Then Ariel reluctantly pulled away. I should get back to work. The Paris team is waiting for my call. Of course. Mattis stepped back. Until tonight, then. Until tonight, she echoed, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. As she walked back to her desk, Ariel felt something her grandmother had once described to her, the sensation of being exactly where she was meant to be, even as she prepared to leave for somewhere new. The path ahead wasn't simple or straightforward. There would be challenges, adjustments, skeptics to prove wrong, but for the first time, she felt confident that her success would be undeniably her own, and that Mattis would be cheering her on every step of the way. That evening, as they sat in a small French bistro, conversing easily in her grandmother's language, Ariel realized something important. She hadn't fallen for her boss after all. She'd fallen for the man underneath the title, the man who played piano to remember his mother, who defended her without hesitation, who was willing to change his entire life for a chance at something real. What are you thinking? Mattis asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Ariel smiled. That my grandmother was wrong about one thing. What's that? She told me never to mix ambition with affection. Ariel reached across the table, taking his hand. But maybe, with the right person, they're not opposites at all. Matisse's fingers tightened around hers. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass with his free hand. To new beginnings, she echoed, feeling as though they were already underway. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. During the day, Ariel trained her temporary replacement, finalized the Paris launch materials, and completed endless paperwork for her international transfer. At night, she packed up her small apartment, donated what she couldn't take, and tried to process the enormous change ahead. And whenever they could find time, she and Matisse were together. They were careful at the office, professional, distant, giving no one new reasons to gossip. But after hours, they discovered each other beyond their professional roles. Matisse took her to small, out-of-the-way restaurants where they could talk freely. Ariel introduced him to her favorite bookstore cafe, where they spent hours discussing novels in both English and French. One evening, he invited her to his apartment, a spacious penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Despite its impressive address, the place felt unlived in, more like a hotel suite than a home. "Do you even spend time here?" Ariel asked, noticing the lack of personal touches. Matisse shrugged. "I work late most nights, and travel often. No wonder everyone thinks you're all business." She walked to the far corner of the living room, where a beautiful grand piano stood. "Do you still play?" He nodded. "Sometimes, when I can't sleep." "Will you play for me?" she asked softly. "Like you promised?" Matisse hesitated, then sat at the bench, lifting the cover from the keys. "I'm out of practice," he warned. But when his fingers touched the keys, the music that filled the room was haunting and beautiful. Debussy's Clair de Lune played with unexpected emotion. Ariel watched him, transfixed. His face transformed as he played, the careful control giving way to something raw and vulnerable. This was a side of Matisse that his employees never saw. The man beneath the CEO, the boy who'd lost his mother too young, the artist who hid behind the businessman. When the last notes faded, she sat beside him on the bench. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "My mother loved Debussy." His voice was quiet. "She taught piano from our home in Paris. I would fall asleep listening to her students." Ariel rested her head on his shoulder. "Tell me about her." For the next hour, Matisse spoke of his childhood in Paris, of his mother's warmth, his father's distance, the loneliness that followed his mother's death. Ariel shared stories of her grandmother, the small kindnesses, the bedtime stories in French, the sacrifices made to give Ariel opportunities. "She would have liked you," Ariel said, echoing what she'd told him before, once she got past the CEO facade. "And what would she have thought about us?" Matisse asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She'd have been skeptical at first, but she always said to judge people by their actions, not their titles. Ariel smiled. "Your actions these past weeks would have won her over." He leaned closer. "And have they won you over?" Instead of answering, Ariel closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a gentle kiss that quickly deepened. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, as if he'd been waiting for this moment as long as she had. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Matisse rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since you first spoke French to me in that boardroom," he admitted. "Me too," she confessed, "even though I tried not to." He smiled. "You were right to be cautious. I was your boss. You still are, for one more week." His expression grew serious. "Ariel, I want you to know, no matter what happens between us, your position in Paris is secure. It's yours, based solely on your talent." "I know," she said, and realized she did. Whatever else was uncertain, she trusted him in this. "I've spoken to the board," he continued, "about transitioning to an advisory role." Her eyes widened. "You're really doing it? Stepping down as CEO?" "Not immediately. These things take time, but I've set the process in motion." He took her hand. "I meant what I said. I want a chance at something real with you without complications." "Are you sure? Being CEO has been your whole life." "That's exactly the problem." His fingers tightened around hers. "It's been my whole life, and I'm ready for more." Ariel searched his face, finding nothing but sincerity. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" "We are." He kissed her again, sealing the promise. Paris is just the beginning. Ariel's last day at the New York office arrived with unexpected emotion. Despite the challenges she'd faced, she'd grown attached to the place where her career had truly begun. Her team surprised her with a goodbye lunch. Even Vanessa seemed genuinely sad to see her go. "You're going to do great things in Paris," her supervisor said, giving her an awkward hug. Just don't forget where you started. I won't, Ariel promised. She saved her goodbye to Matisse for last, meeting him in his office after most employees had left for the day. All packed, he asked, though they'd spoken about her preparations just last night over dinner. As much as I can be, she smiled. I still can't believe I leave tomorrow. I've arranged for a car to take you to the airport, he said, and someone will meet you when you arrive in Paris. You've thought of everything. I've tried. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small wrapped package. I have something for you. Matisse, you didn't need to. Please, open it. Ariel unwrapped the gift to find a beautiful leather-bound journal with her initials embossed in gold. For your new chapter, he explained. I thought you might want to record your Paris adventures. She ran her fingers over the soft leather, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. It's perfect, thank you. There's one more thing. He handed her an envelope. Don't open this until you're on the plane. What is it? Just a note. Something to read when you're between New York and Paris, between your old life and your new one. Ariel slipped the envelope into her purse. When will you visit? As soon as the board approves my transition. A month, perhaps 2. He moved around his desk to stand before her. It will feel like forever. We'll talk every day, she said. And before you know it, you'll be showing me around your Paris. Our Paris, he corrected softly, drawing her into his arms. I'll miss you, Ariel Green. I'll miss you too. She looked up at him, memorizing his face. But this isn't goodbye. It's just au revoir. His kiss was tender, a promise of what awaited them once the complications of their professional relationship were behind them. Au revoir, mon cœur, he whispered against her lips. Au revoir, she echoed, reluctantly stepping out of his embrace. Until Paris. The next morning, New York awoke to pouring rain. Ariel watched the city disappear behind sheets of water as the car Matisse had sent carried her to the airport. Everything felt dreamlike, leaving her apartment for the last time, saying goodbye to her roommate, and now watching the skyline fade into grey. She checked in, passed through security, and found her gate with plenty of time to spare. As passengers began boarding, she touched the envelope in her purse, tempted to open it early. But she'd promised to wait until she was in the air, so she tucked it back safely and joined the boarding line. 6 hours later, somewhere over the Atlantic, Ariel settled back in her seat and finally opened Matisse's envelope. Inside was a key and a handwritten note in elegant French. If you want to write your own chapter here, the apartment above the Rue Mazarine Café is yours. Not as my intern, not even as my partner, but as the woman who made me speak like I meant every word. The key opens both the apartment and, if you want it, a future where we can discover who we are beyond titles and offices. I will follow when I can, but this place is yours regardless. Your grandmother's Paris awaits you, avec tout mon cœur, Matisse. Tears filled Ariel's eyes as she read the note again. Rue Mazarine, one of the most charming streets in the Latin Quarter, the area her grandmother had always described as the heart of the real Paris. How had he known? She held the key tightly, feeling its weight in her palm. It represented more than just an apartment. It was Matisse's way of ensuring she had independence, a space of her own, no matter what happened between them. Ariel closed her eyes, picturing a small balcony overlooking the cafes below, imagining mornings with coffee and fresh croissants, evenings with wine and conversation, a life that honored her grandmother's memories while creating new ones of her own. And eventually Matisse would join her there, not as her boss but as her equal, her partner. She tucked the note and key back into the envelope, her decision already made. Paris greeted Ariel with golden afternoon sunlight that made the city glow. As promised, someone was waiting for her at the airport, a friendly woman from the Paris office who helped her with her luggage and explained that a car was ready to take her wherever she wanted to go. To the hotel, the woman asked in French. Ariel hesitated, her hand touching the envelope in her purse. No, she decided. To Rue Mazarine, please. The woman looked surprised but nodded. Of course, Mademoiselle Green. As the car wound through the streets of Paris, Ariel felt a strange mixture of nervousness and homecoming. She'd never been here before, yet her grandmother's stories had made it feel familiar. She recognized landmarks from photographs, Notre Dame, the Seine, the Latin Quarter, with its narrow streets and centuries-old buildings. When they reached Rue Mazarine, Ariel asked the driver to stop in front of a small cafe with blue awnings and outdoor tables. This is it, she said, gathering her courage along with her carry-on bag. Thank you. She stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the apartments above the cafe. Which one was hers? Taking a deep breath, she entered the building's small lobby and found a row of mailboxes. One had no name, only a small heart drawn in the corner. Ariel smiled, pulling out her key. It fit perfectly in the matching box, which contained another envelope. Inside was a piece of paper with the number 3B written on it, and nothing else. She climbed the narrow staircase to the 3rd floor, her heart beating faster with each step. At apartment 3B, she paused, key in hand, suddenly nervous. What if it wasn't what she expected? What if she was making a mistake? "Your grandmother's Paris awaits you," Matisse had written. Taking a deep breath, Ariel inserted the key and opened the door. The apartment was small but filled with light from windows that overlooked the street below. It had been simply but beautifully furnished, with a mix of antique and modern pieces. Fresh flowers sat on a small dining table. The walls were painted a soft cream color that made the space feel warm and inviting. But what took her breath away was what hung on those walls, framed black and white photographs of Paris from the 1950s and 60s, the Paris her grandmother would have known as a young woman. How had Matisse found these? How had he known they would mean so much to her? As she moved through the apartment, Ariel noticed other thoughtful touches, books in both French and English on the shelves, a small sound system, a fully stocked kitchen. In the bedroom, a handwritten note lay on the pillow. "Welcome home, Ariel. Whatever happens next is up to you. M." She sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by emotion. Matisse had given her not just an apartment, but a choice, a real choice about their future with no pressure or obligation. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Did you arrive safely, Mister?" Instead of texting back, she called him. "Ariel," he answered immediately. "Are you at the apartment?" "I am." She tried to keep her voice steady. "Matisse, it's perfect. I don't know how to thank you. Do you like it? If there's anything you want to change..." "Nothing. It's exactly right." She paused. "The photographs, how did you know? You mentioned once that your grandmother lived in Paris in the 50s, before moving to America. I thought you might like having pieces of her Paris around you." Tears filled Ariel's eyes. "That's the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me." "You deserve thoughtfulness, Ariel." His voice was warm, sincere. "The apartment is yours no matter what. No strings attached." "And if I want strings?" she asked softly. "Then I'll be there as soon as I can." She could hear the smile in his voice. "The board meets next week to approve my transition." "2 more weeks then," she said. "At most. I've already started looking at apartments nearby." "Nearby?" She glanced around the spacious 1-bedroom. "Why not?" "Because you need your own space," he said gently. "Your own life in Paris. I don't want to overwhelm you." Once again, he was giving her the independence she needed, even at the cost of his own desires. "What if I want to share this space?" she asked. "Not right away, but eventually." "Then I would be honored." His voice grew serious. "But first, establish yourself there. Show everyone, including yourself, that you've earned this position on your own merits. I'll wait." Ariel walked to the window, looking out at the Paris street below. People sat at cafe tables. Couples strolled hand in hand. A street musician played accordion on the corner. It was everything her grandmother had described and more. "I should let you get settled," Matisse said. "You must be exhausted from the flight." "A little," she admitted, "but happy, very happy." "So am I." He paused. "Good night, Ariel. Sweet dreams in your new home." "Good night, Matisse." After they hung up, Ariel continued exploring the apartment, finding more thoughtful touches, her favorite tea in the kitchen cabinet, a small framed photo of her grandmother that she'd once shown Matisse on her phone, now printed and framed on the bedside table. In the closet, she found a package wrapped in tissue paper. Opening it, she discovered a beautiful silk scarf with a note. "Your grandmother said every French woman needs a good scarf. This one reminded me of your eyes." Ainsi Ariel wrapped the scarf around her shoulders, overwhelmed by the feeling that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in the city her grandmother had loved, in an apartment filled with thoughtful gifts from a man who saw her, really saw her, for who she was. Tomorrow she would begin her new job. She would meet her team, start building her reputation, prove to everyone that she belonged here because of her talent and hard work. And in 2 weeks, Matisse would join her in Paris, not as her boss, but as something much more meaningful. She walked to the window again, watching the Paris evening unfold below. Somewhere in this city, her grandmother had once been young and in love. Now Ariel would write her own story here. Opening the journal Matisse had given her, she wrote the date at the top of the first page, then added a single line. "Mon cœur, pas mon boss." My heart, not my boss. She smiled, closing the journal. The phrase captured everything: where they'd started, how far they'd come, and the promise of what lay ahead. Outside, the lights of Paris began to twinkle as dusk fell. Ariel made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city come alive with evening energy. For the first time in her life, she felt completely at peace with who she was and where she was going. In 2 weeks, Matisse would arrive. They would explore Paris together, building something real away from office politics and workplace complications. She would excel in her new position, earning respect on her own terms, and together they would discover who they could be when titles and hierarchy no longer stood between them. Her phone buzzed with another text from Matisse. "Missing you already, but proud of you always." Ariel smiled, typing back, "Missing you too, but finding myself here. Thank you for understanding that I needed both." His reply came quickly. "Always see you in Paris, mon cœur." She set down her phone and looked out at the city once more. Her grandmother had been wrong about one thing. Sometimes, with the right person, ambition and affection weren't opposites at all. Sometimes they were exactly what you needed to find your way home. The end.